All right, everybody. My name is Mary Gallagher. I'm the co-author of Teach a Child to Read with Children's Books. And we're going to talk today about how to choose the right books for your child. So you probably have a vision for your child, and if I'm not mistaken, it goes something like this. You want your child to be able to read, you want your child to love to read, and you want your child to love books. I know that's the vision I had for my children. I have two boys. They're adults now, 24 and 21, and they both love to read. They're avid readers. They're voracious readers. They're really good readers. They're also great writers, which I attribute to a lot of the reading that they have done. But I'm here to tell you it wasn't always that way. So my youngest, Sean, he was actually struggling in kindergarten, and I was worried. Even as a reading teacher at the time, I was wondering if maybe he had a reading disability, if I wasn't doing enough at home. The teachers were pulling him out to do support and interventions, and I was getting a little nervous. They wanted him to go to first grade. He ended up repeating kindergarten actually, and I'll tell you what, that was the best thing for him because he just needed a little more time. And then he took off when he went to first grade as a really great reader. And again, he's a wonderful reader. My oldest son, Ryan, he learned to read in kindergarten. He was doing great, but there was a long time there where he really didn't like to read. He did not read. And I was worried, again, I had done something wrong and I had missed something there. He could read, but he didn't want to read. He took off after that once he got into college and he started reading books that he really enjoyed. And now I can tell you I have two adult children that I could talk to about book. I could talk with them about books. We trade books. We buy each other books for gifts. We ask for recommendations about books, and we discuss books together. So that is your vision, I'm sure. That's every parent's vision and hope for their child, is that a child who can read as well as a child who loves to read. So when our kids are getting older, we don't suddenly want to start making reading boring. We want to keep it engaging. So your child might be losing interest because the program and the books you're using are boring. Your child might be shutting down or losing confidence because they loved books, but now they're trying to read on their own, and it's not happening in this beautiful, seamless fashion that we all envisioned that it would. That's okay. That all children are not natural readers. It takes explicit instruction, and it takes help from you. So you may be losing enthusiasm for teaching reading because you see your child struggling or because it's boring and you're wondering if you could actually even do this. And most importantly, if this is happening, the last one, we want to tackle this. You might be worried that your child is starting to dislike reading. Again, I was worried about my older child. He wasn't reading books even though he could. So we don't want that to happen. We want to make sure your children continue to love reading. So the first thing, there are typically three reasons children struggle to read, and how you can help. But I'm just going to talk about the first one for this video. We need to find the right books. If children are struggling, it very well could be that they're reading the wrong books, specifically books that are too hard for them. So there's important things to consider. Interest. We want your child to like reading, be interested in the books. We want them to be quality books. That's why we at Teach a Child to Read with Children's Books, we recommend using real children's books. Those are quality books. That's real literature that's going to engage and enthrall your child and keep them interested in reading. But it's really important that your child's reading at just the right levels. So I'm going to show you that in just 1 second. But first, let's talk about the elephant in the room, okay? I cannot ignore the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is the package scripted reading or phonics program that you may have purchased. In fact, if I'm correct, because I hear from lots of parents, you may have purchased more than one of these reading programs. And you may be going from program to program, or like one parent said, shiny object to shiny object, looking for that magic potion or that silver bullet or that one magic solution that's going to be the ticket to teach all your children how to read and ensure that they all love to read. Well, the problem with that is there is no such program. It doesn't exist. Okay, so I'm calling it out right now. That's the whole reason we wrote the book. We want parents to understand there is no magic reading program. There is reading magic. Mem Fox calls it that, but we'll talk about that later. That's something different. So here's what one parent had to say after moving away from after a year of heavy phonics curriculum. She said at the end of that year, it was painful and it was unpleasant to accomplish her assignments. She hated those readers that came along with the program, and she hated the sight words even more. Okay, this is hurting my heart just to read this out loud. She didn't even want to read for fun anymore. And so one of her goals for her child's early years of education is for her to love to read. So they made a big switch to this book, Teach a Child to Read with Children's Books. Okay. And what she loves about it is the process is very natural. Her daughter loves having a voice in what books she gets to read. Remember, I mentioned choice is really important. And she's found some favorite authors. She's making huge progress in her reading in a short amount of time. Okay, so she says, and if you have a great local library, you're going to be able to get all the books that you need. You do not have to purchase any more reading programs. Okay, sounds too good to be true. Let's keep reading. Here's another parent talks about they started with the phonics program, but it was worksheet heavy. And most days it was just overwhelming to her son. That's because there's no flexibility in those programs, okay? It's do this, do all these things today, do this, do all these things tomorrow. Use these phonics readers, use these worksheets, use these flashcards. I'm not anti-worksheet or flashcard. I'm not even anti-phonics readers. What I am against is a scripted program that doesn't allow you to be flexible for your own child. A scripted program that doesn't support your child's strengths or interests. A scripted program that takes all the joy of reading out of reading and makes your child begin to shut down and dislike reading. That's what I'm against. So we show you how to incorporate all those pieces and parts using real children's books that you can get at the library, saving you tons of money. You don't have to buy a packaged scripted reading program, and your child's not going to hate reading, but we're still going to get all those skills in. And yes, there's a time and place for worksheets, and there's a time and place for flashcards, but that's not the main component of your reading program. The main component of your reading program is going to be real children's books. Okay, so they switched to another program. They didn't even have to pay for this one. Someone gave it to them, and it was better. There were no worksheets, but the drilling part was no fun. Finally, they found our book at the library and went ahead and purchased it. We've been following that easy method for reading, and her child is now saying, I want to read this book. I want to take this book home. I'm excited about reading. Okay, down here it says, when I came across this book, I felt peace and joy. I just love how practical it is and how natural the learning is. Okay, we hear that a lot. That's kind of a common theme in the parent and user testimonials that we get. This is a natural method. It's because we're using real books. We're not using fake, phony, contrived phonics stories, and we're not trying to fit your child into a mold. We're teaching you how to create reading lessons and opportunities for your child that make his strengths and his interests a main part of the reading lesson. Okay, so now she feels peace and joy. That's what we want you guys to feel, and we want your child to feel. So these are all the things that are missing when you use a packaged or scripted reading program. You're not going to get these things. Here's just an example. We give this example in the book. This top example is something that comes with a fake contrived phonics reader. I'm going to read it out loud to you because I just want you to hear kind of how crazy it sounds. The crab shrank back in the crack on the rock. The shrimp swam in the crack. Smack! The crab did dash with his shrimp snack. Okay, sounds more like a tongue twister than anything to me. I get what they're doing here. I understand. I've taught phonics for a long time. They're emphasizing sounds and blends and word families that your child knows and needs to practice. The CK sound, the short vowels. You notice there's no long vowels in this at all. This is just short vowels. But we don't talk in just short vowel words, and we don't use SH and SHR and CK in every other word. So it sounds unrealistic. It's really difficult for us as adults to even kind of picture what's happening in this story. I can barely make a mental image here. And so when children are reading, they have to be able to visualize what's happening in the story. They have to be able to create a mental image. If they can't, then comprehension, it doesn't mean anything to their child and to your child. So it doesn't make sense. Now contrast this with these two sentences from Bear Wants More. When springtime comes in his warm winter den, a bear wakes up very hungry and thin. He waddles outside and roots all around. He digs and he paws fresh shoots from the ground. Okay, now I can make a mental image of what's going on here. I can start to visualize this bear waddling and rooting around and digging, and he's hungry, it's thin, it's springtime. There's so much imagery here. I can understand where the story is going. Yes, there's some words here that are not short vowel words, but your child may not read this book when they're just working on short vowel words. We're going to make a better choice here, but I just wanted you to see the difference between real books and contrived books. So when you use real children's books, and I'm going to explain to you how to choose the right ones in just a second, you get this and more. Rich vocabulary. We just saw that in The Bear Wakes Up. Beautiful illustrations, wonderful stories. You're going to get teachable moments where your child's going to say, what does that mean? He rooted in the ground, and what are shoots? And then you could talk about how plants start to grow, and you could talk about what bears do and other animals when they're digging for food. So those are teachable moments that we explain and talk to you about in the book as well. You're going to get captivating characters and dialogue. Their child's going to be able to make real life connections. They know what a bear looks like. They know what spring is like. Maybe you plant a garden. They know what shoots are coming up from the ground, so they can make these connections. They're learning about the world and other people and things. Again, you have flexibility, and you can create individualized lessons for your child's needs. This is what you get when you use real children's books, and that's why we want you to use real children's books. So we're going to show you how to do that. So the problem that I tell parents, I want you to read more often. I want your child to be reading all the time. And parents say, but how can I use these real children's books to teach my child to read when I don't know which books are the right books to use? Okay, it's easy when I get the package version. It says set A, use these. Set B, use these. Okay, I get it. We all want something that's easy and takes the guesswork out. So that's what I'm going to help you do here. But you can do this without sacrificing real books, without sacrificing the joy of reading. Okay, so we want to combine this. Let's walk through this. There are 3 things that all experts agree you need to know. Now, I try to stay away from the expert talk, and I always tell you guys that teaching reading is not rocket science, even though the experts might tell you so. I'm here to simplify it for you. So just so you know, this isn't something that Mary made up. This is what all literacy experts agree on. This is how we teach reading. There are 3 important levels that you need to know. There's an independent reading level. That means these are very easy books that your child can read without help. These are good books for them to read on their own or to practice reading out loud to other people in the home. Then there's the instructional reading level. These books are a little challenging, but they are manageable with your guidance and support. These are books your child's going to read when you're guiding them during your reading lesson time. So this is a good choice for shared reading, guided reading, or even a read aloud. Then there is the danger zone, the bottom one. We don't want to go there. We don't want to go to the frustration level. These are books that are too difficult for your child to read on his own, and they're likely to cause frustration. You want to use those books only for read aloud time, okay? Those are fine for you to read aloud because you're doing the heavy lifting. So I'm going to give you 5 easy steps to do this. Once you do this and kind of go through it a few times, you're going to be able to see how easy this is, and you're going to have an idea of where your child's levels are. And then as you move forward, you'll be able to gauge the types of words in the book, the types of print in the book, all of that. You're going to be able to choose the right books. So you're going to take 5 or 6 books just around the same level. Use your best guess. Better yet, go to the back of our book, Teach a Child to Read with Children's Books, look in the appendix, and look for a selection of books there, because we give you some pretty detailed lists back there for you to choose. Go to the library, get a few of those, ask the librarian for some other ideas that fall in that range. That's what the children's librarian is there for, to help you. Bring those books home and then start with the first book. You're going to count off 100 words. Just kind of make a mental note where those 100 words end, and then you're going to ask your child to read up to 100 words. We don't need to go past that, okay? It's not that many. But if your child's in the very pre-reader stage, obviously there's not going to be 100 words, okay? So you can gauge that by the first 10 words, and you can see how they do with it. You'll see how this works because it's a percentage. If your child gets to 5 errors, stop. That's already too hard for independent reading. Okay, so you can write down not independent reading. Let your child keep reading. If they get to 10 errors, stop. This is too hard for instructional or guided reading. You don't want to use this book at all except for read aloud time. So put it in the read aloud pile. You know that that's too hard. Go to the next book. Do the same thing. Now you want to break this up. Here's the thing. Don't make your child read all 100 words. If they get to 10 errors, they're done. If they get to 5 errors, you know it might get a little bit hard. So if it's really challenging in the beginning and they're struggling right off the bat in the first sentence, just take that book away and switch it out for an easier one. Okay, so that's kind of how you do this. You don't have to time it. If they're stuck right away, take that book away, choose an easier one. Just choose a simple check mark on a piece of paper to keep track of how many words and how many errors. That's all. Easy, right? Go ahead, hit the easy button. Okay, what do I mean by errors though? Easy. If your child skips a word, don't say anything, just count it as an error. If your child adds a word, don't say anything, just count it as an error. If your child mispronounces a word, don't say anything, just count it as an error. This is not teaching time, okay? We're not here to correct them during this time. You're just trying to get an idea of which books you want to start with. If your child asks for help, help them, tell them the word, but count it as an error. If your child stops and you have to give them the word, go ahead and do that. Make him repeat it, keep reading, and that's an error. Done. Do not count these things as errors. If your child repeats a word, that's not an error. It's fine. If your child self-corrects, so let's say your child says steps and the word is stairs, and he says steps, stairs. Good. Keep on going. Not an error. If your child makes a few attempts before getting it right, that's still not an error. So as long as they get it correct in the end, do not count that as an error. That's okay. All right, so let's summarize this. For every 5 to 10 errors per 100 words, let's start at the top. For less than 5 errors per 100 words, your child could read this book independently and read it to others for fluency practice. If there are between 5 and 10 errors for every 100 words, you can use this in your instructional lesson time during your reading time together. If there are more than 10 errors per 100 words, just use this for a read aloud. Okay, simple, easy. All right, here's just a like what books to use when. Okay, it's just so you know, can I use this book for this also and this? Yes. If it's 95 to 100% accuracy, you can use that for independent reading. You could probably use it for instructional reading, but it's going to be too easy. And it can also be a read aloud because we don't have any rules about read aloud. That's the fun time. No rules. If it's between 90 to 94%, that is not an independent reader. That's too hard. But yes, that's a sweet spot for instructional. And yes, it can also be used for a read aloud. If it's less than 90% accuracy, remember that's a frustration level. We don't want your child to read that by himself. We don't want your child to read that during lesson time. We do prefer that to be used for the read aloud, because when we read aloud to children out of books that are just a little too hard for them, it helps them want to be a better reader so they could read that book on their own. So we give them the gift of reading, and we help them rise to the occasion and want to become a reader like us. All right, so here is your challenge. I'm challenging you because I want you to see how easy this is, that you can do this. I don't want you to give up on your dream of creating engaging and meaningful and fun lessons for your child using real children's books. At Teach a Child to Read with Children's Books, we want you to be able to do this. Otherwise, you're going to feel frustrated if you can't find the right books, okay? So this is really important. So my challenge is you to complete this activity. Go through those 5 easy steps that I just showed you, and then come to our Facebook group. We're at Teach a Child to Read. In the Facebook group, once you're in, write this out. I took Mary's Find the Right Books challenge, and one book I found at my child's independent level is, and tell us the title for it. And one book I found at my child's instructional level is, and tell us the title for it, okay? That way I know that you got this and you're ready to move on to the next thing. This is foundational, you guys. If your children are not reading in the right levels for the right reasons, it's going to be a struggle all the way through. And so we can try all kinds of things, but the first thing I'm always going to do is to make sure your child's reading at the right level and using the right books. So make sure you join our Facebook group so you can get on more challenges and more information like this. Thanks, everybody.